I'm a firm believer in passion-led businesses and brands, and I understand there are businesses that are built without passion, but Studiohawk to me would never have worked if I was not passionate about it. I came from a background of full service companies trying to provide poor quality SEO services as a tack on to clients. And my passion and what I did previously was all around SEO. So I knew I loved it. To me, it's a perfect mix of creativity and logic, just blended together in this beautiful kind of mix to create brands.
So for those who haven't met Harry Sanders before, Harry Sanders runs a company called Studiohawk. He's been a client of ours for a while, and he's got an inspirational story to share about his journey. So I thought I'd get him on board today just to give you a sense of what's possible and what Harry's been up to. So maybe, Harry, I'm going to throw over to you, and I'm going to get you to share a bit about who you are, what you do, and what got you here.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks, David. Good to see you, Nick. All right, I'm going to share my screen because it's just going to make everything easier. And we're going to share this tab specifically. So yes, my name is Harry Sanders. Pleasure to kind of see you all here today. I run a company called Studiohawk. So Studiohawk is, I imagine most of you wouldn't have heard of it. It's a dedicated SEO company. So we specialize in just doing SEO, so content creation, technical work, and digital PR across here in London. We do about 8 million annually. I sit on the board of the Australian Web Industry Association. I'm also the founder of a company called Hawk Academy, which now teaches 2,000. We now teach about 4,000 students a year, and we partner with all the major Australian universities. Now there's a lot going on this slide. So yeah, essentially, like they've done a lot in that space and been able to grow into different communities like EO and YPO that I would strongly suggest people looking into. But a lot of people, the first thing they ask me when they do that is like, what do your parents do? Which I find incredibly interesting. No, I'm not some trust fund kid. So I didn't come from that background at all. So a lot of media stuff that happened, some of it very sensationalized. But the gist of it is when I was 17, I was homeless. So you could say homeless, sleeping rough, couch surfing. I don't really mind what word people want to use, but essentially I didn't have a place to stay. So I found myself on the streets, which was a very confronting experience, especially being 17. And previously, I actually kind of thought I had my whole life sorted. You know, I actually got my first agency job when I was 14. I started skipping school and became a head of search at 16. And, at 17, I won't go into it too much, but I got this big ass ego that really almost was my downfall. And I left that company on really bad terms and started what is Studiohawk. And around about the same time, a lot of family stuff went down. And, my mum unfortunately didn't have any money and my dad didn't have the means to support me either. So off I went. And the only thing I really had during that time was my skills in SEO, which honestly sounds like such a stupid thing to have. But it was all I had. I had that, and I didn't have any money. I had my laptop and had all sorts of run-ins that I'll share for an extended session, maybe over drink sometime. But the biggest thing for me in the midst of all that was kind of figuring out what I was going to do. And for me, that was about finding my passion, right? So I'm a firm believer in passion-led businesses and brands, and I understand there are businesses that are built without passion, but Studiohawk to me would never have worked if I was not passionate about it. I came from a background of full service companies trying to provide poor quality SEO services as a tack on to clients. And my passion and what I did previously was all around SEO. So I knew I loved it. To me, it's a perfect mix of creativity and logic, just blended together in this beautiful kind of mix to create brands. So for me, getting into that passion was so important and having a laser focus on it. So instead of going down the route of choosing all these different digital marketing services I could do, like web design and everything else going on there, I really just focused on all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this. And that's my passion. And maybe at the time, maybe I was hoping that I would get enough money to get a share house or something. It was literally what I was going for here. And still today, I talk about this idea of passion a lot because one of the core kind of tenets I believe in is passion over skills, which a lot of people don't like. But we're in an industry in SEO. I'm not sure how much people know about it. So SEO, obviously search engine optimization. In a sentence, the process of making sure that our clients like Officeworks come up when you search for stationery instead of other competing brands, which we won't need to mention. And so that's the kind of work we do. And so not the ads, but the organic results, we make sure that they get clicks. Now that is a skill, and it's a skill that is in super high demand, but there's not a lot of talent for it here in Australia. And so we had to kind of build that up. And every time we've tried to hire someone, with a lot of SEO knowledge, only very rarely has it actually worked out. But every time we found someone with passion and we were able to teach them SEO, it's always worked out. And so to me, that's one of those underlying kind of things of passion over skill. I kind of digressed off that story a little bit, but that was a big belief to me. And when I was kind of forming everything.
So Harry, interesting point
yes.
here. Can I just jump in now? First of all, I didn't tell everyone you're in London at the moment, which means hello. What time is it over there?
Just turned 12:30
at night.
So good fun at night. Good fun.
Okay, so that's what we dragged him out of bed. But Harry had to go to London because he opened his office there just recently, and this is part of the expansion. But I just wanted to touch on this because we just had Andrew talking about vivid vision in an organization, and making sure that part of your vision is impact, making sure you've got a bigger picture than just yourself, and also attracting people that have the same values as you. And you've just touched on passion. So do you guys have an impact goal as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a very clear kind of impact goal. So our kind of goal is, it really is to provide it. So Studiohawk's motto is seize opportunity. So we say that seize opportunity for our staff. So give people opportunities that normally wouldn't. So again, coming down to hiring people that are passionate, but that maybe don't have the skills right now, and also give opportunity to our clients. And so that's that kind of mission statement. And it's a powerful thing to rally behind, because if you ever have like that dull day, you can kind of go, well, actually, we're kind of giving people a chance here. Like all these people I look around me in the office, there's 50, 60 of them, we're giving them a chance. And then the same is true for clients. I mean, we get calls every day of, people in various states of emotion, of happiness, and kind of sharing what results they've had. We've got a whole Slack channel dedicated to it called Campaign Wins. Yeah. And so it's just daily flooding of successes. And so that's kind of an awesome thing to have.
Yeah. And like today, we've been talking a bit about leadership and the importance of inspiring the right people to join you. You've obviously gone through trials and tribulations of recruiting people and getting the right people on the bus. What do you think are the key elements that get the right people to stay?
Well, it has to be a clear kind of goal, clear trajectory. I mean, I've met a lot of founders, David, as of you, that sit there with their staff and they say, I just need to make $1 million in sales so I can sell. And that is a horrific thing to hear, because that to your staff, you have to see it from their perspective. You're basically just saying, okay, what you just told to them is, this is my cash machine and I hate working here, and I'm really looking forward to the moment where I can sell this to someone else and get rid of it. That's what you've just said in that sentence. So if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to be the founder, you need to be talking about your vision. Like when we started off, my vision was I wanted to be the best in Australia at SEO. And that was the kind of goal we rallied around. We're like, you know what, we're going to make a difference in this area. We're not going to scam people. We're going to have, no contracts or all that kind of stuff, which is our big thing, right? That's our point of difference. We're just going to specialize. And then, we grew out to this point where we did become the largest in Australia. We had all the awards, all the clients that we could really want to have to show that we were the best at SEO in Australia. And then obviously I've gone well, hang on, that's good, but what about being the best in the world? And so we've rallied the whole troops and done London and all that kind of stuff because there's a vision, there's a clear purpose of why we get up every day and why we all sacrifice what we do.
So let's go back a step. You said you wanted to be best in Australia. How old were you when you said that?
I was 17 when I said that. Little naive 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, a naive 17-year-old kid said, I want to be best in Australia. And when you changed to best in the world, when was that?
I would have been 21. No, I was not 21. I would have been 22, 23.
Okay, so just in the last year or so.
Yeah, last year or so is when we've gone, actually, let's step this up a notch.
Yeah. So how does someone at that age decide world domination is in your sights?
I think it's baby steps. Yeah. Oh, a lot. Surely. No, I think it's like baby steps. I mean, you start out kind of, again, like if I come back to my first goal before I wanted to be the best in Australia, I mean, I just wanted to get a share house. I just wanted to have enough money to like have a stable place.
Yeah.
And so I, went out there and tried to make that happen. I mean, I certainly didn't start Studiohawk day one and be like, we're going to be the best in the world at SEO.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the realm of things. And then, once I got the share house, I'd made an important step that every business has to make is what is the actual vision? Because it can't be money. Like,
yes.
It's boring and unmotivating and uninspiring. So what is the actual vision? And so I went, well, we want to be the best in Australia. And that's when we really started growing. I mean, the first 2 years I was hustling to just try and, not that I like the word hustling, but I really was. I was going to networking events. I was doing anything I could just to get 40 grand worth of business in our first year. And I was stoked. Even though most of that was expenses, it was enough for a share house.
Yeah.
Second year, we probably did 70,000. Again, most of our expenses. Third year, we did about 600,000. Big difference. We wanted to be the best in Australia, not just have enough money for a share house.
Yeah, right. So as soon as you decided to amplify your vision, the business just multiplied by 10.
Correct. Because we rallied people around a shared vision.
Right. And another thing you keep saying, you rallied people. So it wasn't about yourself anymore when you went past the 70,000. It was starting to say, I can't do this on my own. Being the best in Australia doesn't mean Harry is the best. It means Studiohawk is the best.
Correct. That's exactly right. So it was never about me being the best in the world or being the best in Australia, because that's so subjective, so debatable, so tricky to do or demonstrate. And so it was always about, well, we want to be the best in the world. And so that was that kind of vision there, and rallied around that common enemy of dodgy practice and full service kind of providers that, again, falling under that dodgy practice. So not only do we have a vision, we also had a common enemy of what we were striving to be.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So let's fast forward to today. Where's Studiohawk right now?
Right now we've got about 50 staff in Australia. We've now got 6 staff in London as of yesterday, and that's growing at about 300% year on year in London. London's just going bonkers right now. We cannot hire enough talent. In Australia, we're still growing at about 40%, and it's just purely because the SMEs in Australia are so woefully underserviced. Like, it's more expensive, it's lower quality, and so with the model we have, I mean, without going too in depth into the business model, but it just removes a lot of the fat in typical agencies and innovates in a lot of the other ways. And so we're able to do a better job for cheaper. And so, I expect that to just continue growing. I mean, we won the Australian Award for Marketing Innovation over KPMG because of the way we handled that kind of growth in digital marketing, which is a big problem that Australia has.
So you touched on a few key elements here that I'd like to share. One is you solved the problem in an industry. The second one is that you decided there's a better way, like these people are getting ripped off, and we believe there's a better way to service these people. So it's not just about being great at sales, it's about creating an offer that is a no-brainer, right? We can do it cheaper and better, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. So do you want to just tell us a bit more about how you do that? Because that innovation is probably one of the key elements to your growth, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the innovation, I mean, at its heart of any role, the CEO, the founder, the leader, I mean, at a certain point, your role becomes innovation. And so, I mean, at the start, it certainly is. And really, it ends up also being innovation. But it's kind of like, well, okay, there's a lot of SEO companies, there's a lot of people that do SEO.
Super
What actually
competitive,
makes
huh?
us, yeah, super competitive. What actually makes us different? What gives us an edge? And for me, what really helped was coming back from no preconception of what makes companies work, because I had no idea.
Yeah.
And so I probably just played too many video games. So what I did was I structured the company like I would structure a video game. And there are a lot of mistakes in that, but a lot of really good outcomes and lessons. And, even something as simple as that, well, sounds stupid, is in an innovation compared to how other companies are structuring things. So instead of putting in account managers, because they added a layer of bloat to the agency, they basically added a 50% cost markup in anything you did, because you
Yeah.
had to have an account manager letting everything go to an SEO specialist. We said, well, why do we do that? Why do we have this bloat of an account manager? Why don't clients just talk straight to the SEO specialist? That's why there's no disconnect or anything like that. And
Yeah.
so
Right.
instead of doing that account management, we just trained our SEO specialists on how to talk to people and how to manage clients. And all of a sudden, that removed that whole layer, so that you can have SEO specialists working directly with clients, but having the benefit of being in a pod or a team, we call them, of
Yeah.
8 other SEO specialists that have a manager and have an SEO director and have structure around them. I mean, the other thing that we really innovated in is SEO, people think is a special field in itself. Actually, one person cannot do SEO. It's like the job of 4 people. So we have specializations. We have a technical specialization. We have a content specialization. We have an offsite specialization. And these people kind of join teams. And then these teams then have to recruit other people, new juniors and new talent coming through to be a part of them. So you
Yeah.
have this great culture internally of people that have chosen a spec and are trying to progress through different levels of that specialization,
Mhm.
demonstrating client work that they've done. So those kind of simple things help the company to really self-sustain themselves.
Yeah.
The last thing that I'll touch upon is, instead of spending a ton of money on marketing or advertising, that would obviously kill any chance we had of like being incredibly cheap. What we
Yeah.
did was, instead of doing that, we basically said to people, okay, you know what, you guys are going to be our lead generation, right? So we said to our staff, you guys are the SEO specialists, it's up to you to decide, how we bring in clients. So instead of spending money on advertising, we went down the route of over servicing,
Mhm.
and really generating really happy clients.
Yeah.
And what we would do is would incentivize staff, and that say, if you bring in a client that's a direct referral from an account you're working on,
Yeah.
you get 10% of that campaign's value. And so literally everyone is now directly incentivized to grow the company.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like people are getting paid well as well to work at Studiohawk.
Top industry rates. I make sure I pay them 20% more than anyone else.
There you go. Interesting. So you pay top 20% above industry top. You've got the best people, so high talent density. Let
Yep.
me ask you this though. You how old are you now?
I'm 23, just turned 24 as
Yeah.
of a few weeks ago.
So how does a 24-year-old manage all of these moving parts? Because for me, like I'm sitting here, my mind's blown. You talked about innovation, you've talked about strategy, you've grown a business from zero. So literally in 7 years, you've gone from 0 to 60 employees right now. How do you
Yeah.
manage to keep the main thing the main thing?
I make sure I have incredible people around me. I make sure that my leadership team is rock solid. I make sure that they've got supports, like, our leadership team's got access to, coaching, like David, to go through and help them with any leadership challenges or things that they might need to do. And I make sure that I'm chatting to the right people constantly. I'm in the right groups. I'm surrounded with the right people. I'm with people that have achieved where I want to go or what I want to achieve. And I just avoid the distractions. I mean, there's so many things that come up, and no offense to anyone that's in these things, but like blockchain's a thing that always people are asking me, like, can we do like blockchain? Can we do a coin or something? It's got nothing to do with what I want to do. I sit down and I wake up and I want to be the best in the world at SEO, right? That's got nothing to do with blockchain. That's a distraction. So if it doesn't align with the vision, it doesn't come on board.
Yeah.
So unless someone can convincingly tell me that that's going to make me better at SEO, I'm really not interested.
So talking to your team, because we do coach all the managers, and you're known as the 80-20 guy.
I am 80-20 man. Yeah.
80-20 man. Can you explain everyone what the 80-20 man, how does the 80-20 man keep the 80-20 going?
So yeah, I'm called the 80/20 man, or affectionately the yeah guy. And essentially what that means is I believe that 80% of the outcome can be done in 20% of the time,
Yeah.
right? Too often, it's like, when you're doing a project and the final part of it always takes the longest,
Yeah.
that's the 80/20 principle. It's a really well-researched principle. It's the same as like, 80% of your revenue comes from like 20% of your products. But
Yes.
essentially, I focus on that zone of genius, that 20%. Where can I achieve most of that 80% so that the team can polish off the rest of it, but I can focus on doing the things that really make a difference. So if someone says to me, "Oh, Harry, what color proposal do you think we should do?" You get a yeah. I really don't care. It's not a material thing. It doesn't make a difference. If we're spending hours on proposal colors, we've lost the plot. But I
Yeah.
do care if we're looking at doing an entire new system, how can I look at that and make sure it's as efficient as possible
Yeah.
so that we aren't spending time on unnecessary, useless things?
Yes. Yes. And I think the challenge most people have is we can't do what Harry does. We can't say no. And I said, you can say no, or you can say yeah, right? Which is no.
Yeah.
And it's brutal because it is making a decision on the fly. Because I think I've seen you do this where people start talking and literally some of our conversations, you'll write 3 things down out of 20 things. And I'll go, you go, that's enough. That's all I needed was 3 things. And literally the 3 things are one thing. And so it's a natural ability, I think, that you have fostered over your time. And I'm not sure how you got that or whether that's just a natural skill. But I think like for entrepreneurs, the difficulty is what do I say no to as opposed to what do I say yes to?
It's just diluting the noise. I always find I look at the ones, look, I think fundamentally, and I'm not afraid to admit this, I think a lot of people think the word lazy is a bad word. I think I'm a pretty lazy person sometimes. And I don't think that's a terrible thing to admit. I think we're all in our hearts a little bit lazy. Yeah, I've had to work hard. Yes, I've done 100-hour weeks, but still at the end of the day, I want to get the maximum outcome with as little effort as possible.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I'm doing things, I mean, yeah, I'll get a bunch of ideas and I'll get 20 ideas. Now, 17 of those are going to require immense work, restructuring for maybe a 10% yield. But there's 3 ideas in there that I can roll out tomorrow that might have a 20% uplift. So I'm going to focus on the easy to roll out things, incremental improvements. I mean, one thing I always hear is people saying, I'm going to 10x, this word of 10x. Entrepreneurs going to love that word. I'm going to 10x my business in the next year. Don't focus on 10xing it. Focus on improving things, 1% every day, 2% every day.
Yeah.
And you'll find much better outcomes than if you try and pull some magic rabbit out of a hat to 10x your business overnight.
Yeah, fantastic. We've talked a bit about the secret sauce. We've talked about the fact that you're really where you are right now. What does the future hold for Studiohawk? What's the future hold for Studiohawk?
What does the future hold for Studiohawk? Well, I think I'm looking to continue growing in Australia and looking to start growing that into the States as well, because that'll be the final conquest. So in the world of SEO, that London is the capital of SEO.
Yes.
So we've been really successful in kind of growing into that kind of market.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is just how do we refine and undoubtedly make ourselves the best, because Studiohawk isn't meant for sale. It's not meant to be acquired. It's an engine. I'm building this company so that I can build other companies that have, some of which I've sold previously, but the most exciting one I'm working on is something in the employee culture space, where I can use Studiohawk to grow that brand and use that as an engine.
Yeah, fantastic. So I've got a few questions in the chat box. One that's here is, how did you raise the capital to get things growing?
Completely self-funded. I didn't have any money outside. I spent when I founded the company just before I was kicked out, I spent about, I think, $2,000 in accounting fees and everything to actually establish the company. And that's all the money I really spent. After that, it was completely like I would get a client in and I would try and use that money to grow. But because we didn't, the business model, it's a service-based business, we didn't need a lot of capital. For businesses that I do now that, like the one I'm working on is about a $500,000 dollar cost for development. I mean, I've been able to self-fund that. But if I wasn't able to, then I would be going to connections and IB firms to raise that capital. The reality is, and this is going to be a bit controversial, it's easy to get money when you're successful. If you've got a success behind you, I can walk into any of my buddies in YPO and raise a mil very, very easily. I could probably raise 10 mil, 20 mil. The problem is if you don't have anything behind you. And so to that, I would say, find your engine. Studiohawk was my engine. Find your engine that can get you there, because no one's just going to take a 5 mil risk.
It's true. And I think when people are asking about capital raising, you talked about a valid point here, which is I was profitable from day one, and every single part of my growth was self-funded. And the question was, how do I find the capital through sales to fund the growth of the organization? And you still managed to grow in a ridiculously short period of time through self-funding. There's another question here. How about the tough times? This is from Adrian. Did you ever feel like you weren't going to achieve your goal of being best in Australia?
Oh man, so many times. I mean, what a lie it would be if I sat there and said, yeah, 100%. There's been so many times where shit's gone wrong, or things have happened, or just situations have arisen, or even times you just start doubting everything, including everything you've ever achieved. You go like, have I been doing the right thing? Am I focused on the right thing? Have I sacrificed my childhood for nothing? And these are all doubts that literally everyone has. I mean, you wouldn't be a founder or a business owner without having those doubts. But yeah, so many times in the tough times. I mean, even in the tough times when I was couch surfing, I was like, you know what? Maybe I just, forget this whole thing. This is clearly not going anywhere. And maybe I just like get a job or do something like that. I had those thoughts daily. It got easier after that. I think once I got a place is when it started getting a lot easier. I mean, as much as I wanted to be the best best in Australia at SEO, it was a goal. If I didn't do it, it was kind of, well, I mean, for me, it was kind of the be all end all, but it wasn't as drastic as I'm going to be sleeping on the streets.
So I think, like you talked a bit about this, you set a big goal. And I think a lot of people, when they go into business, they don't set a big enough goal. We've talked about this earlier today, and it's not worth the effort. But here we are saying, if I become best in Australia, that pays for all the pain and the penalty of all the times I've been knocked over. But if I became a $500,000 business was my goal, and I got knocked down a couple of times, I'd be questioning whether I might as well just go get a job. So it has to be worthwhile, right? And this is
absolutely.
So one last, there's a couple more. And Narelle's asked the question, have you always had the ability to focus on what's important and avoid distraction, or is it something that you've built?
I think a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think that I've used a lot of different techniques that I've found really work for me. Like I have my lists, and my list is my be all end all. So is my calendar. My list is my guiding light. I sit down every morning and I write my list. And if I start working on tasks that aren't on my list, that aren't urgent importance, I mean, I don't know if you've gone through like the priority matrix.
Yeah.
But like if they're not urgent importance, then back to the list. And then if they need to be on the list, and they go in my calendar so that the next day they can be on my list. And that way, if I'm ever fluffing about, I'm watching the Dota 2 tournament, or I'm doing something that's not related to work, I can look at my list and go, this is not done. I can do this when my list is done. And so I always kind of I'm very much a completionist. I just want to get it all done, and then I can focus on the rest of my life.
So we've talked about intense focus. We've talked about prioritization, right? Making sure you know what the next thing is, and really not getting distracted. So making sure that it's completed before you move on to the next thing. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. There's one more here from Cindy. When you started growing and realized your vision could be bigger, how did you keep growing personally to be the business owner you needed to be? So,
this is a really good one, actually. I don't think I've been asked this. And it's something that I often think about today. I'm a bit arrogant and a bit, when it comes to this, there's a lot of things I try not to be arrogant about, but this is one thing. I will do whatever it takes to make sure I'm the best person for the job, because I would hate to wake up one morning and go, I'm not the best person for this job. So I make sure I learn whatever the hell I need to learn. I make sure I talk to whoever the hell I need to talk to, make sure I absorb whatever I need to absorb to be the best at what I do and to be the best in my position. So for me, that means looking always to what that next step is. I want to see what guys with 100, people with 100 people in the company, 200 people, 300 people in the company do, and how they behave in their business. And that's what I try and seek to learn and discover and imitate and kind of innovate on, so that I can get there. But yeah, I always try and focus on exactly that kind of thing. How do I make sure that I'm still the best person in this role? It's a question that I still ask myself. I don't know to answer it completely. I don't know, how to always be the best person, but I know I'll always try, which in a
I'll give an
weird way kind of
observation.
makes me the best.
Yeah. What I have seen about you, Harry, is you're not scared to ask for help. You have a number of people who support you and you pay. So all of the help you get is not free help. You're a member of YPO, EO. I think you understand the importance of being connected. And also you don't seem to have this, you never fear asking a question. So you'll say, I want to know how to do this. Give me your best stuff. And you won't take everything on board that someone says. You'll just take the bits that work for you. So this 80-20 combined with the boldness of being able to ask people, I think is part of that secret sauce as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like, there's nothing stupider than an entrepreneur with pride and ego, like the stupidest traits you can have.
Yeah.
Because honestly, you're not that special. There's people out there with billion-dollar companies. Freaking learn from them. Find out what the hell they've done. That's what I do all the time. Again, coming back to me being lazy, instead of me trying to reinvent this kind of wheel all the time, I'm just going to go to these guys and be like, hey, I have no freaking idea how this works. Can you help me? And most people sit down. If you're specific enough about what you need help with, and you can help them in some way, then 100% they'll sit down and talk to you.
Yes. And it is amazing that you're willing to ask, and you're 100% right. People at the top are looking for someone that they can actually share some of their knowledge with. And people are intimidated by their size, by their credentials. And when a young upstart comes on and says, explain to me how you do stuff. Oh, no problem. Let's catch up and let's have a chat.
Yeah, 100%.
So the information is there. It's just the willingness to go and find it. Awesome. Look, this has been really, really great for me. I don't know about everyone else, how they're feeling about this, but just hearing from you and just sort of taking away the shackles, because all of us think, we're doing the best we can with what we've got. And then some little upstart 23-year-old shows up and says, yeah, it's not that hard. I'm lazy and I'm doing better than you.
Oh, David.
So what I'd like to do is, first of all, thank you so much for jumping on board today, for staying up a bit late and not playing video games, but rather actually attending this and then sharing some of the insight into who Harry Sanders is and what you do. I think there were some good questions. If there's anyone that needs to reach out to you, they can. What's the best way to reach out?
Send me an email at harry@studiohawk.com.au. Seriously, got a random SEO question, I'll do my best to answer it. Got a random business question, I'll do my best to answer it. Yeah, I'm a pretty open book. Yeah, awesome. Harry, so thanks so much for your time, everyone. Let's unmute and give Harry a nice warm thank you for joining us.
Awesome, Harry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harry.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Appreciate it.
Brilliant.